Well, today is the day we celebrate the life of slain civil rights activist Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and joining us this morning with his perspective is Peter Drummey of the Massachusetts Historical Society. Mr. Drummey, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
And, of course, we're talking about Dr. King, who has some very well-known local ties.
Yes, he was, as a very young man, he became an ordained minister, but he went on to get a master's degree in Pennsylvania and then came here to Boston in 1951. He would have been 25, to get a doctoral PhD from the Divinity School at Boston University. And the wonderful thing, I think he enjoyed his time here, and it was important, brief but important part of his life, but especially important in that he was set up on a blind date with Coretta Scott, a young woman from Alabama who was here studying music at the Boston Conservatory of Music. So their lives together began, both people from the South, young people from the South, but their lives together began here in Boston.
And, of course, he was also connected to the Kennedy family.
Yes, not in the sense that as he became a more outspoken and important spokesman for civil rights, and especially civil rights in the South, it was the Kennedys, and this is when John F. Kennedy was president and his brother Robert F. Kennedy was Attorney General. They were put in the position of having to maybe step forward more than they would have done on their own to support him when he was, through his peaceful protest, several times in first Montgomery and then in Birmingham, arrested and jailed. So their relationship with him is an interesting one, and he was probably impatient with the speed they were moving on civil rights, and they were probably felt pressed by his very vehement support for civil rights, and you could argue human rights.
Now, of all the civil rights activists, especially ones of his time, he seems to loom larger than any of them.
Yes, I think that's because he became an emblem for a sort of peaceful protest, and I think that's very important. He had been influenced in his study in graduate school here in Boston about, especially impressed about the role of Gandhi in freeing India through essentially passive resistance, active passive resistance to wrong. And I think that was something that touched people deeply. This idea that people's protest was not within the law, and people who were protesting were perfectly prepared to suffer the consequences of going outside the law to protest, but in a peaceful way. And also, it won him the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. Remarkable for someone who's so young.
All righty, well, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it right there, but thank you so much for speaking with us. We do appreciate it.
No, and it has a wonderful local connection. Oh, and became a state holiday long before it was a federal holiday, actually in 1973.
All right, well, once again, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it.
My pleasure.